Red Bull committed everything to an extremely bold strategy with Max Verstappen during the British Grand Prix, but the maneuver failed spectacularly. Now Christian Horner reveals precisely how this drastic choice converted what could have been a possible victory into a true disaster that cost fundamental points in the title fight. Could this be the decisive moment that might determine the direction of this season? Let's discover how an all-or-nothing strategy transformed into one of Red Bull's biggest tactical failures in 2025. To understand the magnitude of this problem, it's necessary to return to Silverstone and observe exactly what occurred behind the scenes. During Friday's practice sessions, Max Verstappen faced evident difficulties in finding the perfect setup for his car. Red Bull couldn't extract the maximum performance expected, a situation that activated a critical alert within the team. At this moment, Christian Horner and his technical specialists made a decision that would completely alter the course of the weekend. They opted for something extreme, something typical of tracks like Monza, famous for their extensive straights and demand for terminal velocity. Red Bull drastically reduced the rear wing angle on Verstappen's car, converting the configuration into an extremely low downforce setup, as if they were competing in Italy. This strategy worked magnificently on Saturday. Max obtained a spectacular pole position, utilizing his speed superiority on the straights to overcome Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris in the final moments of qualifying. It appeared that Red Bull had discovered the magic recipe, the ideal answer to the challenges they were facing. However, as frequently occurs in Formula One, when you risk a lot, the possibility of failure also becomes colossal. The situation intensified even more on Sunday. Weather forecasts consulted by Red Bull indicated only 20% probability of morning rain, with expectations that the track would dry afterward. Based on this information, they maintained the low downforce configuration, betting they could preserve their speed advantage until conditions improved. However, nature had other plans for Silverstone. When precipitation arrived, it wasn't simply a passing drizzle. It was an intense storm that converted the track into a true trap for any car without adequate aerodynamic support. Verstappen's ordeal began right at the start of the race. With little rear downforce, the car was practically uncontrollable in wet corners. Max was literally sliding across the track, struggling to keep the car on the correct line. The situation reached its most dramatic moment on lap 21, during the restart after the safety car. Verstappen, who occupied second position and still harbored hopes of a possible victory, completely lost control of the vehicle and spun, plummeting from second to 10th position in mere seconds. It was an instant that defined not only the race, but possibly the fate of the entire championship. From that moment, Max initiated an epic recovery. As the track dried in the final laps, he managed to better utilize his low downforce configuration and gained positions, finishing in 5th place. But the damage was already consolidated. While Oscar Piastri celebrated a dominant victory, Verstappen watched his championship lead dissolve like snow in the sun. He now finds himself 69 points behind the Australian, a difference equivalent to almost 3 complete races considering the 25 points from a victory. Christian Horner didn't hide his frustration when explaining precisely what happened behind the scenes of this decision. According to the Red Bull leader, they literally transformed the car into a Monza configuration, removing downforce to maximize speed on the straights. The strategy seemed ideal theoretically and worked brilliantly in qualifying, but converted into a lethal trap when conditions changed. Horner admitted that no weather forecast they consulted showed that rain would be so severe and persistent. The most enlightening aspect of Horner's analysis was when he acknowledged that Oscar Piastri possessed an evident pace advantage from the beginning of the race. Even before rain appeared, it was already clear that McLaren operated on another level, racing at a speed that Red Bull simply couldn't match. The team was just trying to resist until rain arrived, hoping that adverse conditions could shuffle positions and provide a chance for Verstappen. But when precipitation finally came, instead of being salvation, it became the definitive blow. The situation becomes even more critical when we analyze what this represents for the remainder of the season. Horner admitted that even if the race had occurred 2 hours later with a dry track, it would be extremely difficult to overcome the McLarens. This reveals a concerning reality for Red Bull admirers. The team isn't just facing isolated strategic problems, but rather a real performance deficit compared to the competition. McLaren wasn't just faster at Silverstone by coincidence, they're genuinely ahead in car development. But the problem is even broader than it appears superficially. This isn't just a narrative about a strategy that failed or an incorrect weather forecast. It's about how Red Bull is losing the absolute supremacy that characterized recent seasons. Max Verstappen, accustomed to winning races with ease and controlling championships from the beginning, now finds himself in a completely unprecedented situation. Chasing instead of leading, reacting instead of dictating the pace. The psychological pressure of this situation cannot be underestimated. Verstappen has always been recognized for his serenity and ability to perform under pressure, but now he needs to discover ways to recover almost 70 points in a championship where the difference between teams is increasingly reduced. Every mistake, every erroneous strategic decision, every mechanical problem now has amplified consequences. There's no more space for risky experiments like what we witnessed at Silverstone. The question that remains is whether Red Bull will learn from this error or continue betting on risky strategies in desperate attempts to recover the lead. Christian Horner already signaled that the team should have finished on the podium at Silverstone, recognizing that even with pace problems, a more cautious strategy would have guaranteed a much superior result. This suggests that perhaps it's time for Red Bull to rethink their approach and focus on consistency instead of high-risk bets. The championship is still distant from its conclusion, but episodes like this demonstrate how decisions made in fractions of seconds can define the destiny of entire seasons. Red Bull bet all their chips on a radical strategy, ignored inherent risks, and paid the highest possible price. Now it remains to discover whether Max Verstappen possesses the mental capacity and Red Bull has the technical competence to reverse this situation and reconquer the leadership that seemed so solid at the beginning of the season. The question that won't go away is, was this just an isolated, incorrect decision, or the beginning of a series of errors that could cost Max Verstappen the fourth World Championship? What do you think about this Red Bull strategy? Was it just bad luck with weather, or an irresponsible decision that could have been avoided? Leave your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any behind-the-scenes analysis of Formula One. Click on the video appearing on your screen, because there I explain how McLaren is dominating the season and what are the secrets behind this historic turnaround in the World Championship.